Good morning. My name is Bill Perry. I'm CEO of Deep Blue Medical Advances. Deep Blue has developed a novel hernia mesh to address the unacceptably high rate of hernia repair failure. Now, a hernia is a defect or a bulge in the abdominal wall. And in the abdomen, these almost always form at the site of a previous surgery. That's why they're called incisional hernias, where the abdominal pressure pushes through the closed site. Now, to fix this, you restore the defect with a suture and you reinforce it with mesh. And to sew the mesh into the abdominal wall, you take a suture and you take a bite of tissue and you take a bite of mesh and you throw some knots, and that's one anchor point. And you put those anchor points around the perimeter of the mesh. Globally, there's about 1.5 million of these each year, and the majority of these are open surgeries. Now, the problem is that lots of hernias form, and even worse, lots of hernia repairs fail. With all the laparotomies in the US, 10 to 30% of these will turn into a de novo hernia. And worse, up to 32% of mesh-reinforced hernia surgeries fail over time, and almost 2/3 if you do a repair with suture alone. And this is caused when the mesh anchoring fails because the suture cuts through the tissue or the mesh. Surgeons literally call this cheese wiring. And this happens because abdominal pressures through normal exertion spike up between 32 to 50 newtons per centimeter of stress, and suboptimal anchor points fail at just 6 to 12 newtons of stress per centimeter. And if this happens before bioincorporation has occurred, you have a problem. And it's a serious problem. Failed anchor points lead to mesh migration, mesh contraction, and mesh tearing away from tissue. You can see the photo labeled cheese wire effect. You see all these gashes in the fascia. The suture is actually still there. It cut through the fascia. The middle photo with the mesh dehiscence, you see a mesh that's rolled up. Obviously, it was put in and sewn in place, tacked down at the edges, but those anchor points failed and it rolled up. The photo that says torn fascia, 2 arrows are pointing to blue suture knots, and between those is suture, and right below that is an almost perfectly formed U-shaped cut that looks as if someone took a cheese wire and sliced right through it, because effectively, that's what happened. We believe that mesh should stay where you put it. So the problem is anchor point failure at the mesh suture tissue interface. So the issue we're addressing is very basic. Stress equals force divided by area. Now think of the snowshoe. The force of a body on the area of a shoe causes stress that makes you sink down into the snow. The force of that same body on a larger area of a snowshoe decreases the stress, and you can walk on top of the snow. We all intuitively know that a tree with a large root ball is much stronger than a tree with a small root ball. So increase anchor area, increase strength. Strength is obviously important, but what's the best way to do this? Well, our approach is the T-Line Hernia Mesh with a superior anchoring system. For the first time, we're actually eliminating the main point of failure, which is the interface between the tissue and the suture and the mesh. And we do this with integrally knit extensions that are actually used to anchor the mesh itself to the abdominal wall. Now, the mesh and the suture are one. The anchor is the mesh, and the mesh is the anchor. And our integrally knit extensions have 15 times more surface area, and that yields 300% anchor strength. Now, a 3x better anchor strength is a safer, less recurrent repair, but that is not enough. We have to provide a superior surgical experience for the surgeon to actually want to use it, and that's what we do. For example, when you sew the extension in, you're solving a problem for them because now you get optimal tension adjustment and the mesh lies flat. That's very hard to do in standard of care. You also are not tying knots. Surgeons routinely cut their fingers because the suture is fishing line. It can cut through the glove, cut into the surgeon's fingers. They nod when I talk about this. Now you have a much less fatiguing and onerous approach. And of course, you can do less surgical dissection, and super important, bioincorporation is now occurring at the anchor point, not just the mesh body. So the anchoring is actually getting stronger over time. Our first product is a polypropylene mesh. It's available in 8 sizes that you can cut and shape. And we have a portfolio of products behind that. So let me show you how you put it in. It comes in a tray. You take a bite of tissue right next to the mesh. This is a demo pad, obviously. And you take a bite and you go back through the extension and you cinch it down on itself. And then you go back through it again, and then you cut it. So it's bite through, cut. I can teach a surgeon outside an OR in 10 minutes how to put this in and go in and have a great surgery. The photo in the corner is what it looks like when it's in. You can see how strong it is, how simple, and how advantageous it is. Now, we're doing a clinical launch that has first sales, VAC approvals, papers, case studies coming out. We've gone to about a dozen key opinion leader academic hernia sites. It's going extremely well with strong support moving into those hospitals. And our scientific advisory board is populated with thought leaders, for example, past presidents of the America's Hernia Society who enthusiastically support what we're doing. The US market is about a $750 million market. That's about 450,000 hernias and about 370,000 mesh surgeries. Globally, it's much bigger. We really like the market dynamics. There's 4 major players that have 85% of the market. But interestingly, the other 15%, there's 10 companies in that space. We think this is ideally suited for either acquisition or partnering, and they're eager for innovation. Remember, all these companies use this traditional small surface area suture or tack or staple that fails at that interface. We have an excellent product portfolio. Our first product is polypropylene, available on the market. We have an anchor clip for use in MIS surgery instead of doing that lock stitch. A biodegradable biosynthetic mesh. It's the hottest space in hernia today with a much higher price point and gross margin. And then we have a coated mesh for MIS use that's anti-adhesion. All of these are coming. So we're right now in our clinical launch that will be going to the middle of this year. We expand our indications with a second 510K this next quarter, Q2. We do a pilot sales launch in the second half of the year. And then we grow with a full commercial launch in 2023 and bring out more products and grow from there. In 2019, we did our first equity round. And with that, we got our 510K, went out and did these surgeries in our alpha launch with sales and studies and VAC approvals. We have a very robust patent estate with multiple issued patents in 3 technology areas and a portfolio coming behind these. And then we're currently closing a $3.5 million A2 round. We have a term sheet. Our first close on this is going to be next month. Our second close will be May and June. I'd love to talk to you to see if you're interested in partaking in that. And with this, we're going to fuel our pilot launch, expand our clinical applications, get more data, do additional product development, manufacturing optimization. And based on conversations we're currently having with strategics, we think our first potential exit window is about a year from now. But if that doesn't occur, that's fine. We'll just go do a B round and keep growing. We have a strong team. I've been doing this for 29 years. I've been part of or have led 19 medical device product launches. I've been part of multiple exits in an IPO, been part of raising more than $115 million, a lot of BD and regulatory clearances. My partner, Dr. Howard Levinson, is a Duke University abdominal wall reconstruction expert who's the president-elect of the American Society of Plastic Surgery. The rest of my team has decades of experience and multiple exits under their belts. So we have a proven successful team. We have our first 510K in hand and our second coming next quarter. The KOLs who are using this love this and strongly support it. And they've led to our first sales and VACs, a great patent estate. All of our financings have been oversubscribed. We have significant funds on hand from that and our grants. So it's a highly capital efficient model and a full portfolio coming behind it. So I'd love to see you in the breakout room for you to be able to explore this opportunity with me. Thank you.